This sound is created in Helm, which is, I don't know, just a synth that exists. Hey everyone, so this is this sort of hyperpop track I've been working on recently, and you pretty much just heard the sort of the main section of it here, but it sort of has this longer build up to it, including this intro section, and then this other intro section, and then this sort of verse section, which you did hear the end of here. This intro section is actually recorded with this thing, which is a casiotone MT45, which is like a vintage keyboard. My limited research didn't really tell me anything. So here's sort of just the introduction section. So you'll hear there's this cassette tape sound under it. And in between each of the sections, it stops and starts with this tape plugin. And then this last one plays into the start of the drum beat. Here we go. And then we go into the actual first section. And then this whole thing will play again, and then we have a little transition which then goes into the verse section you just heard. This is called verse here, but I didn't really think about the structure when I was writing each individual part. So I would consider this more of a verse just because of the fact that this particular section comes back later, whereas this is like a one-off thing. But the names I've put on them are kind of unintuitive. Anyway, let's actually take a look at some instruments, starting with, I reckon, the drums. So we got Taylor, as I always do, and just some different samples. I was originally going to use the drums on the keyboard, but I forgot to record them, and then it was just too much of a hassle to set it all back up, and, you know, just too hard. Anyway, here's the drum beat. Just a pretty standard sort of pop type thing. Let's take a look at the lead here. So this sound is created in Helm. I think I did just make it from scratch. So it's just these two oscillators with some unison and also cross mod. There's a filter envelope. I don't know, it's not really that complicated. It's just a random little patch I threw together. I'm not super experienced with Helm, but I've been trying to use it for simple patches just so that I can get a bit better at it. And then slowly start to use the more unique features of it as I get more experience with it. But yeah, that's what this patch is, this lead patch. There is another lead patch that comes in later, but for now this is the lead. It's accompanied by two basses actually. We have an acid bass and an electric bass. So let's start with the acid one. This is made in Tau Noisemaker, which is a replication of, I'm sure you can guess, the Juno synths with the iconic chorus here. A very typical acid bass with that chorus on it. And the way I set these up to align together is we've got the lead doing its little thing, and then when that goes into just holding these notes, the acid bass sort of takes over and plays something. And then so it has this more little interesting lick here to sort of take over the focus when the lead is playing a simpler part. So you'll also notice it plays notes at the same time as the kick drum during the first bar, just to sort of mirror that. so that it takes a very accompaniment role during the first half of the loop, and it takes on more of a lead role at the end. And then we have this electric bass, which is the APBL, whatever. I never remember what the letters are, but it's the Ample bass. One of Ample's 2 free guitar plugins. So that's playing at another. Just a more typical bass line. Exactly what you'd expect from an electric bass. And then we have this up part, which is played with carp, a carpless strong, a very simple plugin, but a very good plugin. And we have this up sound on the right here, and it's just following the notes of sort of the chords. Like obviously there's no chord element here, but the chords that would be played according to the basses and the lead, just following those notes to lead it. So that's pretty much the sort of intro section. And then we have this transition, which is just this sort of drum pattern with this little roll here, which is kind of hard to create when you're using one sound. You get the gunshot effect, if you know what that is. But I think it sounds alright. Just had to be careful with velocity and everything. So then we get into this verse section, which is sort of broken down and slowly builds up. So we start with just lead, drums, and bass. So we're in D major here. The way I composed this lead section is pretty much, I came up with this descending thing, then repeated it again, but instead of just going da 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 da, I sort of offset it by a beat. And then on the last time, I just swapped the other notes around and changed the rhythm. And then I used the same trick to compose the next bar, come up with a little thing, and then repeat it but offset. And then just use different notes on the last time. This time I actually used different notes, not just rearrange the existing one. I did actually use new ones. So if you think about it, it's like one progression twice. So the first half of it is pretty much the same both times, except rather than climbing up on this fill, it goes down, and it also has a longer sort of trail down. So we repeat the first thing again, but climb down this time, and then we sort of do the same rhythmic motif on the first one, but just shifted down. So we've got and, but then rather than doing a repeat and then other notes, the last time it just changes things so that it can sort of carry down to the D, which is the tonic. We can bring in the bass, which is just very simple here, just following along with it. And that's it, just B and E. Then we move on to the drums, which fairly simple. It's just another pattern. I sort of did the same thing where I created a loop and then repeated it but changed it slightly. So if we take the hi-hats out of it, you'll hear what's happening. And then on the last time, rather than going here and here, it just goes right in between them. Which sort of creates a stronger upbeat on the second time rather than this more unpredictable upbeat the first time. And then you add the hi-hats back in to get this sort of, it's not swing, but it sort of has a similar thing going on. And that's what you get there. And then throughout the rest of the verse, we're just adding in elements. So we have this up coming in, which is the same thing, just B and E, like what the bass is doing, just playing notes rather than holding them. Very, very simple there. And then we have this acid thing, which is again just B and E, but it's on like sort of the middle half of each bar. So it skips 1, plays 2, 3, and then takes off on 4. We have this build up, which is the only thing that changes is the drums. It just plays this little build up with the snare, the hi-hat, and the kick. And we have this broken transition crash. If I move this back, you'll see it how it's meant to sound. Like that, but I literally just snipped it at that point and moved it over. I think is pretty cool. I'm sure that's not an original thing at all, but it's the first time I've ever seen it done. Drums here are actually a little bit interesting. It's pretty much we have these 16th note hi-hats, sometimes with like these little rolls. There's not a lot of science behind where I put the rolls. I pretty much just put them where I want to put them. If I just solo these hi-hats, you'll see what's going on. It's really just rolls wherever they make sense. Now we'll listen to all the drums together. We have this little kick roll here. And you'll notice I've got the main snare here. But I have this other sort of clap sound here. So it kind of feels both like double time and normal time. Or more like normal time and half time, actually. Except you don't have one here. So it's kind of, this kind of continues the feel of the old beat where it was full time. But in the chorus, it's actually half time, which is why this is at this point rather than over here. So it's pretty much just combining the both in a certain way. And then at the end, I have this little fill with the snare. And then I continue these sort of syncopated snares at a lower velocity just to sort of carry it over. Because it felt weird just having this build up into nothing. So I carried it over a little bit. And that's the drum beat. Fairly simple, just a lot going on. Lead pattern here takes on actually more of an arpeggio roll because you'll notice there's no arpeggio or electric bass in this section. So the lead pretty much takes over the up roll. Obviously that sound is a bit more intense than this. So it kind of just suits the sort of increased intensity of the chorus more to use that as the up, which gives the new lead room to take over. So if we play them together. You'll hear again the use of that supertonic E and the tonic D here being literally the only variation between the two sections. It's just this descending thing starting from the root note of D going down and then down again, and then this little pattern at the end going down to a supertonic, and then literally exactly the same thing, except this whole thing is shifted down so that it ends on the tonic. And that's the pattern. In terms of the sound of this one, it's pendulate, which is a awesome synth. I love this thing. I think I found out about it in Andrew Huang's video about free software or something. It is so good. You need to get it. It's like a combination of East Coast and West Coast synthesis. The oscillator is called a double pendulum. It's got all these different parameters, and you'll see just how cool the synth looks and how you actually have these visualizations of all the weird synth stuff that's going on in the background. Then you have a wave folder, low pass gate, very typical like Buchla style synthesis stuff, but then you also have an ADSR, LFO. So it's kind of just a big combination of lots of things, which is just, it's really cool. And the presets are just awesome. This is just a modified preset. I just changed it a little bit to sort of make the tone a little bit better suited to the rest of the song. And then we have the acid bass, which is just playing notes along with everything. And then you pretty much end up with this big full sound that's just hyperpop nonsense. And yeah, we continue these crash transitions as well. And then at the end, we do the same broken crash trick, except instead of bringing the verse back in on the break, I actually bring it back in afterwards so that you hear the like sort of crash hit and then everything comes back in, which sort of makes it breaks it down further, because rather than going into a chorus, you're coming out of the chorus. So I wanted to use the same trick, but in sort of to have the inverse effect. So I think it works. and then it goes back into the verse there, and then following on to that, we go back into another chorus, and then we just end. And that's it. So that's the song. I've been recording for 22 minutes, and that's the song. So hopefully you have enjoyed this little look at the... Why is it not focused? Thank you. No? Thank you. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little look at this sort of hyperpop track. I don't know if it's necessarily done yet. There are some things I want to change, so it's definitely not being released today or anything like that. So if you've got feedback, please do let me know. But yeah, if you did enjoy or get anything out of this, please make sure to leave a like and also consider subscribing to my channel. I know it's been a while, but I do still post as much as I can in between other things that are going on. And now that it's the holidays, I will hopefully be able to not only post more, at least twice a week, also build up a backlog so that even when like it gets busy, I can still have things ready to go. Stuff like this, where it's not like the latest synth news. Anyway, please do consider subscribing. Anyway, comment any feedback. Let me know what you thought. If you think I'm just completely wrong about something, also let me know, because that's just what I want to hear. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you either in about 4 days or 4 months. Bye.